Oh boy. Can't believe it. Back after all this time. Well, it would be new for you anyways, because this is Survival No Rules, a server hosted by Xavier Lavelle from the platform of Shifttech. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but yeah. And, well, I'm really just recording this to do a pretty simple thing of keeping a record and raising awareness of this server, and that way, when this place is inevitably gone, it won't just exist in screenshots and memories, but instead in video form. You can see how it grew from the ground up, and in this wasteland, it's only us. It's only us. Right now, anyways. Hopefully, in the future, things will grow, things will develop, but for now, it's just us. Let's get the day started. Alright, so we're gonna start off with building up a tower? Yeah, a tower. Why not? And this is gonna be where we stay, where we live out of, and yeah. Hopefully, I'm with knowing that this video is going to be released, I'm gonna give it, say, a week before. No, not a week. I'm gonna give it at most to the end of the year, if the server gets active. If the server gets active by November, I'll give it at most to the end of November, and if it's active, I'll give it a month after the server gets active. That's probably when it's gonna be gone. So if you want to see this place in person, then you're gonna have to come in fast, because, well, the thing about doing stuff on SNR is that you never know when it'll be gone. But sadly, it's the server that's gonna attract the most people right now, so. And, well, it's where we have a fresh start. With the scraps of the world. Make a copy of that eventually. Alright, let's see. Need to collect stone, so while I do that, I'm gonna go over the history of the server, because this is a introductory episode, so might as well go over how this server got started. So roughly in the year of 2017, February 23rd, I think. I'm not sure if that's the anniversary day or not, but sometime in February 2017, Zave opened up the world on Omelet Arcade, and it's been the same world ever since. And to think I've been on this world since, well, since probably day one. And I've seen it. It's like, but I haven't been active the entire time. Like, I've been active. I was mainly active from, well, to where people know me nowadays. I was active from May 2020 to whatchamacallit, September 2020. I should say August, because it all collapsed in August. And you may be wondering what it all is, and my answer to that is the Commonwealth. And if you know SNR, you probably recognize the name. And what I have to say about the Commonwealth is that I'm going to try to rebuild it from the ground up. It's been over a year since SNR as a whole has been active, and the ad I pushed out for SMP didn't get any traction, so hopefully episodes in Season 5 for SMP will gain traction there. But SNR, there's no resets on SNR to where you could really start whenever you feel like it, and now feels like the right time to start with SNR because we're in the basics, you know. We have what's left of our old stuff, and we have a story to tell. And until somebody else logs on, it's our story and only our story. So let's go through my story from day one of my most recent era. So it was in March 2020 when I first got back on, and then I was inactive for like a month. But in March 2020, I made a base that was inside of a whole false chunk I created off of the various bugged chunks because of updates throughout the world. And yeah, I made a false chunk, and that base lasted for about, well, it technically lasted for about 1.5 months, since it was completely inactive for like a month. But once it started like getting popular, once I started actually using it and developing stuff there, it lasted about half a month. And then in those like 3 weeks or so, I amassed a pretty big following. And back then, it was the New Win Republic, based off of the new California Republic of Fallout fame. So I used that and started working on a project. It was really just, providing new players with a safe space to go to in this new world that they didn't really know. And in that time, I ran into some of the bigger players on the server, including one by the name of Yang Who 2020. And little did I know that trusting him would be my inevitable downfall, because less than a week after trusting him, the base was gone. Nobody knew who had done it, since people were constantly coming in and out. Nobody really knew who did it. So we moved out to another 1,000 blocks and started a new base. And that base lasted for about 2 weeks. Lasted from whenever it started to roughly May 7th or 8th, I want to say. Like, it didn't last long at all. Because, and you may be wondering why I used early May as reference. Because, well, it's because May 5th is when the New Win Republic was changed into the Commonwealth. Initially, the Commonwealth Provisional Government, operated by myself, or founded by myself, Lost Vein, Sin Serpent, Crimson Slime, and at the time, just Numis MC. And Numis actually came up with the idea of creating the Commonwealth. So, if you ever want to know who created it, he did. He deserves all the credit. All I did was come up with a name and agree to the plan. But what happened afterwards was what I'd say I did, because I was always the one who found locations for the bases. The only time I didn't find a location for the base was once, and there were 5 bases throughout Commonwealth history. And I'm not going to explain where any of those are, because throughout the series we're actually going to visit some of those locations, and mainly to scavenge for bits and pieces that might still be left, since most of those bases are craters now. And that brings me to the next point, where when the Commonwealth was first created on May 5th, 2020, there was a war going on between a clan called Imperium and a clan called Omega. And in that time, and Numis, when he was mainly in control of the Commonwealth at the time, he got the Commonwealth involved in that war too. And after the second false chunk base, the founding base, was griefed by Yang, even though it was technically somebody else who was caught in the act, we figured out it was Yang, and we all suspected it was Yang because a couple days, or even a couple days prior to the griefing, he proposed the idea of a self-destruct system, and that resulted in the base being absolutely annihilated in the end. And that's actually where I got these shulker boxes from, since there's still some stuff left in that area that I'm probably gonna go and scavenge in the next episode. But yeah, and after that we went out like a couple thousand blocks away and founded a new base. I decided on the location, mainly because of the various glitch chunks that were there, and that base lasted for about a couple weeks, or about a week, before it itself got griefed on May 13th. And I remember that day specifically because it was also the same day as the AP Euro test, which is part of the reason why I remember that day so vividly, because after the stressful taking of the AP Euro test, I got on SNR, and my base was gone. And it was at this time where the Commonwealth experienced its first loss, massive loss, I'd say. Because at that point, the Commonwealth is still a new group, and that saw some people realizing what the future would hold, and they left. Krim and Sinzer both left the Commonwealth shortly afterwards, while myself, Numis, and Lost grouped up, and we didn't really group up immediately, because after that, everybody went their own way. Like, the Commonwealth was still a thing, but there wasn't another unified base until a little while later, when I found a mountain next to a desert with a bunch of bees and decided to call that the Commonwealth's home. And then we started building there, and while we were building there, I'd say that that's the base that lasted the longest, but I'm not really sure, because I know it was griefed within a month. So yeah, it wasn't the base that lasted the longest, but in the time that it did last, a lot of building was done, because that was when a lot of people were brought on board. Gazan being one of them, and Gazan actually did a lot of building there, and Mima as well also did a lot of stuff there, and then the chords, and then sometime earlier, Yang was banned from the server because he was creating lag machines, and then he tried to blackmail Zave, so he got banned from the server. And at that time, and then sometime afterwards, Spookills, the new leader of Omega, eventually found the Commonwealth's base, but I was able to talk him down from griefing it, and then that was the second test for the Commonwealth, where things started to fall apart, and then sometime after that, the base was abandoned, and I stayed at it for like a while afterwards, but then I peaced out, and because I was offered membership to a group called the Fishermen by R1 Will with 1 L, and I went out to that base, and that base was also destroyed, like less than a week after I got there, like a couple days. And then after that, the server just hit an inactive period because people were able to teleport directly to you. So everybody wasn't on, nobody was at their bases, and then 1.16 came, the Nether update, and the server exploded with life, and I set out to make another base, since I didn't really have anywhere to go, and I didn't really want to go back to my previous base because I left it for a reason, and that reason was because people already knew where it wasn't safe there. That's why a lot of other people left too, because it wasn't really safe. Great, I wish I had emeralds. Anyways, so after I left, so then I found a bastion and decided to start repairing it. That lasted for like a couple weeks, and then I went up to the surface on July 2nd and started making an above ground base, not too far away from where the fishermen had set up, and I started working on a base there. And then shortly afterwards, the Commonwealth came back full force and made another base, and then started working back in the base known as Jacksonville, which is the base I had previously abandoned. And then that got griefed, so we started a new base, which I had no input on deciding the location of. And then I joined in sometime later to start working on that base, splitting my attention between my personal base and the Commonwealth base. And then that base got griefed, and then I put up my own base as a place for the Commonwealth to settle in and to use as a base while we decide on a more permanent solution. Little did I know that this would become the permanent solution, as sometime later, and over the next couple months, the Commonwealth was strong, you know? It was going strong until a group called Snowden was trusted. And then everything started falling apart. There was some issues. And then Snowden griefed Valencia. And that was the end of the Commonwealth. That was the end of a lot of people's activity on SNR. And it's left the server in the place it is today, where barely one person logs on at a daily basis. So, yeah. And that's why I'm looking to rebuild the Commonwealth from the ground up. That way, one day, we'll be able to fix the wounds that were dealt. And maybe one day fix up mistakes that were made in the past. And yeah, and then that's why, and the main reason why I'm doing this, even though SNR is dead, is because A, I want to bring attention to the server, and B, no one's really on SMP, and the server's gonna be reset in when 1.18 comes out anyways, so better to just work on here, knowing that this place will stay here, instead of being inevitably reset, even though this place is probably going to be inevitably griefed. Which is why I'm not going to put too much energy and too much resources into it, but I'm still going to put a lot of heart into it. And that's what makes the difference between me and most SNR players, is that I actually put in the work and effort into making a base, and I collect all of my resources from hand, you know? Which is why it hurts so much when a base is griefed. And for the purposes, but I left out quite a few people in that mentioning, which is why this is going to be quite a short video, actually. This is going to be quite a short episode, but the future episodes will be longer for sure, as we continue to work on this area. And if you'd like to find this area and maybe join in my work, join the server, and I'll observe your behavior, and if I approve of it, expect me to be sending you a private in-game message asking you if you'd be willing to work with me. But until then, this has and will be me. So, I guess that leaves me to say, goodbye. And don't forget that the Commonwealth, or whatever name it's under, will always be here, ready to protect you.